Welcome to ListLab. 3 tiny clay tablets found in Romania may be older than the earliest known writing on Earth. If that is true, then one of the most important timelines in human history may not be as secure as it seems. So are these objects evidence that writing began far earlier than we thought? Or are they something just as fascinating but very different? In this video, we will explore the mystery of the Tartaria tablets, then the alternative theories that turn them into a historical controversy, and finally the official explanations and what the evidence can actually support. If you enjoy calm, evidence-led investigations into ancient mysteries, like the video, subscribe to ListLab, and tell me in the comments where you stand before we reach the end. The story begins on the 15th of September 1961, when Romanian archaeologist Nicolae Vlasa excavated a Neolithic site at Tartaria in modern-day Romania. Among the finds were 3 small clay tablets marked with strange incised symbols. They were not large monuments. They were not royal inscriptions. They were small, plain, almost modest objects. But the signs cut into them seemed to hint at something enormous. If these tablets really belonged to the period archaeologists believe they did, then they might be older than the first accepted writing systems of ancient Mesopotamia. That is what gave the discovery its power. In the accepted historical timeline, writing emerges in places like Sumer around 30100 BC, as societies become more complex and begin recording goods, names, transactions, and later stories and laws. But the Tartaria tablets appear to belong to a far earlier world, a Neolithic farming culture in southeastern Europe. Some estimates place them around 5500 BC to 5300 BC. That is not a small adjustment. That is a gap of roughly 2,000 years. And suddenly, the question was no longer just what these symbols meant. It was whether the origin story of writing itself might have to change. The mystery deepened because the tablets were not found in isolation. They were reportedly discovered with human remains and other objects that may have had ritual significance. 2 of the tablets were pierced with holes, as if they had been suspended, worn, or displayed. That detail matters because it suggests these were not casual practice pieces. They may have been important objects used in a special context. And that raises an even stranger possibility. If they were not practical records, then were they sacred symbols, ritual markers, signs of identity, or the remains of a symbolic system we still do not fully understand? This is where the story became bigger than the tablets themselves. Some researchers and enthusiasts argued that the Tartaria tablets were evidence of an early European writing tradition, one that developed independently of Mesopotamia and much earlier than mainstream history accepts. They pointed to similar signs found on pottery, figurines, and other artifacts across the wider Vinca culture of southeastern Europe. To them, the tablets were not isolated curiosities. They were part of a larger world of signs, repeated often enough to suggest that these ancient communities may have been recording meaning in a deliberate way. That idea was powerful because it offered a very different map of early civilization, one in which southeastern Europe played a much greater role than standard accounts usually allow. From there, the claims grew larger and more dramatic. In some retellings, the tablets became proof of a forgotten literate civilization, a lost chapter of European prehistory, or evidence that mainstream archaeology had ignored something revolutionary. That helps explain why the tablets still attract attention today. They seem to offer a door into a hidden past. But this is also where caution is needed. The tablets are real. The symbols are real. The debate is real. What is much less certain is the leap from mysterious signs to a full writing system. And it's important to separate the real archaeological question from modern Tartaria conspiracy material, which is largely unrelated to the actual excavation, the actual tablets, and the actual scholarly debate. Mainstream archaeology does not dismiss the tablets. In fact, their importance is exactly why scholars are so careful with them. The first problem is dating. The tablets themselves were not directly dated at the moment of discovery, and some aspects of the excavation record have caused later disagreement. That means the case depends heavily on the context in which they were found and the dating of associated material. If that context is secure, then the tablets are indeed extremely old. They would belong to the Neolithic period, long before the first accepted writing systems of Mesopotamia and Egypt. But even if the early date is accepted, that still does not settle the biggest question, because age alone does not make something writing. This is the point where the mystery becomes harder, not easier. Most historians and archaeologists use a stricter definition of writing. A true writing system does not just use symbols. It represents spoken language in a structured and repeatable way. It can record names, sounds, words, ideas, or grammar in a consistent format. That usually leaves patterns. Signs repeat in meaningful ways. Sequences vary enough to suggest more than decoration or isolated symbolism. The Tartaria tablets do not clearly show that. Their signs are few, the inscriptions are short, and the evidence is too limited to show a system capable of recording language in the way later writing systems clearly did. That is why many scholars prefer a more cautious explanation. They see the tablets as part of a symbolic tradition, rather than a true script. Similar markings appear across Vinca-era material in southeastern Europe, but they are often inconsistent, simple, and limited in sequence. That suggests a shared visual language of symbols, perhaps linked to ritual, ownership, status, clan identity, or sacred meaning, rather than a full writing system. In other words, these signs may have communicated something important without actually recording speech. Some researchers think they represent an early stage in the long human path toward writing. Others think they belong to a different kind of symbolic culture altogether. Either way, the evidence is strong enough to show meaning, but not strong enough to prove writing in the strict sense. And that is what makes the Tartaria tablets so compelling. They do not fit neatly into a simple story. They are old enough to challenge assumptions. They are strange enough to invite speculation, and they sit very close to one of the greatest turning points in human history, the moment when symbols became writing, and writing changed everything. But the tablets stopped just short of giving us a final answer. They seem to point toward meaning, intention, and shared ideas. What they do not clearly give us is a complete system of recorded language. So do they rewrite the history of writing? Probably not in the strongest sense, at least not on the evidence we have right now. But that does not make them unimportant. In some ways, it makes them more interesting. They remind us that the road to writing may have been longer, messier, and more experimental than simple timelines suggest. Human beings were making meaningful marks long before the first accepted scripts appear in the historical record. The Tartaria tablets may not overturn the official story, but they do force us to look more carefully at the deep prehistory of human communication and ask how many early experiments have been lost. So what do you think? Are the Tartaria tablets a genuine clue that the roots of writing run deeper than we thought? Or are they something just as fascinating, a lost symbolic tradition from a world before true writing began? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy serious ancient mysteries explored in a calm and balanced way, like the video, subscribe to ListLab, and join me for the next investigation.